So you're an adult, but you still feel like there's people in your life who treat you like a child. They question your decisions, they undermine your preferences, they judge you, look down on you, they kind of make you feel like you don't know what you're doing with your life, like you need their guidance, like they know better, like you don't know very well, and it does not feel good. What is this all about? Is there someone in your life that does this? Is it a parent? Even though you're an adult, you have a parent that still treats you like a child. Is it a partner who treats you like a child in certain ways or maybe in a lot of ways? Is it a certain friend that you always feel kind of belittled or small around? Is it a coworker? Is that person somewhere in your life, or is it several people in your life that you feel like they treat you like a child? If so, this is what we're going to talk about today. It's a term in psychology called infantilization, and I'm going to teach you what it is all about, why you might be infantizing yourself, why other people infantize other, what it looks like, and then what you can start to do to change this one around. Because if you've experienced it, you know it does not feel good. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you. Special shout out to my shifters who are here. So great to have you here on this talk today. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The button's about right down there. If you could like the video, that would be amazing. And either way, my name is Kristina, and I'm a registered clinical therapist, researcher, coach, the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, where so many of you are in there and doing this work on a deeper level, being guided, supported, giving tools, step-by-steps and strategies to learn how to manage your mind and emotions and feel calm and confident, no matter whoever or whatever is happening inside or around you. And get more information about the Shift Society there in the description. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And being infantized can definitely hold you back because it can keep you existing in a more stunted way in your development. You're not showing up as an adult confidently and clearly being the director of your own life. We're going to talk about more what this looks like I said, and why it happens. But first, just to clear things out, just to give you a really kind of clear working definition about what infantilization is, it is when an adult, a fully functioning, cognitively coherent adult, is being treated like a child, even though nothing in their mental, physical, social, or intellectual abilities or well-being requires such treatment. So if this sounds like you, let's talk about this some more. So what does it look like? So what infantilization specifically can look like is if someone is infantizing you, it can look like them constantly questioning your decisions. If you feel like there's someone in your life who says things to you whenever you talk about something that you're doing or a decision that you've made, something you're pursuing, something that's important to you, they'll say things like, "Are you sure?" Or they'll even be as bold to say, "Well, you shouldn't do that," or "That doesn't make any sense." Or they go and say, "Well, you need to do this instead. You should do this instead. Why don't you do this instead?" And then, you start to question yourself, you start to question your decision. Now, this is different than someone offering some feedback, offering some suggestions. Often it feels kind of belittling. And it does. It feels like someone's looking down on you for your decisions, not like someone is trying to genuinely offer some different perspectives and some helpful feedback, opening up your awareness to maybe consider some things in the decision you may not have as a support, not in like a demeaning kind of almost controlling way. Another way it can look is if someone is undermining your accomplishments. If you've done something, you're really proud of it, and they kind of downplay it, and they're like, "Oh, you just got lucky," or "Oh, that's not that big of a deal," or, oh, you probably should have done that a long time ago, or, oh, you're just getting to this now, it took you this long, right? Like, again, undermining, belittling, kind of making you feel small, treating you almost like a child. Although any parent that talks to their child like that, that's a whole other topic for a whole other day. Next sign of what it can look like is acting really surprised. If someone acts really surprised when you do accomplish something, when you are successful, when they're like, oh, like, wow, I'm surprised that you could do that. Or, oh, wow, like that. Wow, like I really didn't think you could. And, bless her heart, I love my sister, but I remember several years ago, this is a good 10 years ago, but I was working as a therapist, a master's degree in psychology, working as a full-fledged professional that people respected. And I remember her talking to her on the phone one day, and she's a family physician, and she was talking to me about one of her patients who was struggling with depression. And I was giving her some suggestions on some questions to ask or some things to look into or some ways to help her client sort of sort through some of the things she was struggling with. And she stopped the conversation. She's like, oh, this is really helpful. You actually know what you're talking about. And I was like, yes, I do. I am a professional and I am highly trained and educated. And I know that I am your little sister, but don't be so surprised. And it was like that in the moment. That was infantilization. Now, she didn't mean it. I'm her little sister. I'm 4 years younger than her. I've always been the baby of the family. In that moment, she was kind of having a hard time conceptualizing me as a highly educated, intelligent, competent, capable professional, but it stopped and that was the last time it ever happened. But in her brain, she had to make that shift and adjustment to see me in that way. And she absolutely did. And it hasn't come up since, but that would have been an example of infantilization. If that would have continued on in our relationship, that would have been problematic. Another way that infantilization can show up is if someone is criticizing or putting down the things that are important to you, right? If you share something like, oh, like I'd really like to go on a cruise, and they're like, cruises are ridiculous. Nobody, like, it's such a waste of time. And like, you don't want to go on a cruise. Like, different from them being like, oh yeah, I don't love cruises. I find them claustrophobic. I find the food too repetitive. I want to explore. Like, I don't like them. I don't think they're the best, right? Different than being like, no, like they're no good. Like you shouldn't do that. You should do something else. Like, it's almost like trying to undermine your decision and get you to do something else that's important to them instead of just being like, oh, not my favorite, but I see that it's important to you. Another way that it can show up is if someone is always acting like they're better or they know what's best. And by proxy, it makes you start to kind of doubt yourself or to question your decisions or to second guess what you actually like, because they're very bold in saying that they are right, what they know is best, they have the correct solution, they have the truth, and anything that you do that deviates from that is clearly wrong. Another way it can show up is if someone is helping you with something, or even if they're not, you're in the middle of doing something and someone comes over and they kind of start like looking at what you're doing and they see that you're not doing it quite right. And instead of being like, oh, you might want to try this, or you should do this, or maybe do this because they happen to be an expert in that thing, they kind of shove you aside and they take over and they start doing it without you asking for it, without you making that request. And they kind of like, it almost feels like they're not actually trying to be super helpful. It can feel a little bit more like they don't think you know what you're doing. And so they need to show you that they know what's best and that you're incompetent. And you can tell that kind of feeling when someone is trying to be controlling versus when someone is trying to be helpful. Now, that aside, if there is like an area of expertise, let's say you are plumbing, you are doing some plumbing in the bathroom, and your brother, who is a plumber, comes in and is like, no, you're making a mess. Let me do it, right? That's different. They're the expert. And unless you're like, you know what? I want to figure this out. You're not always here. I want to learn this for myself. Back off. I'll ask you if I need help, but I want to do this one myself. That's different. But let's say it's just something that you're just kind of trying to figure out on your own, and whether or not that person has any more skills in you than they do, they just have this general sense that they know better, that they can do better, that they are better, and they kind of push you aside and take over. And you're like, I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. Kind of treating me like a child. Anytime you have that thought, you're kind of treating me like a child, that is a good sign that there's some infantilization going on there. Another way that it can show up is if someone is dismissing your feelings when you are expressing them in a clear and respectful way, right? If you're saying like, this really upset me, or this hurt my feelings, or I didn't like it when you did this, or I have a problem with this happening. And then they kind of undermine it. They're like, you're too sensitive. You take everything so personally. You just need to get over it. You just need to get a hold of yourself. You're way too emotional. And they're undermining you. They are belittling you. That's another way that it can show up. So why do people infantilize others? There's a few reasons. A big one is a need for control. Some people, we can go into a whole other talk about why some people have a lot of need for control. Often it comes from a sense of feeling not in control, but whatever the reason, they need a sense of control. And oftentimes they think that they can realize that sense of control by controlling others. Sometimes people want to have a sense of superiority over others. They're struggling with their own self-esteem. They're dealing with their own stuff. Maybe they think that they are better than others, and so they just generally want to feel superior. They think they're superior, and so they act superior. And acting superior means that you have to make someone else feel inferior. And for whatever their reason, that's just their MO in life. Maybe it's with other people, maybe it's just with you, but there is a desire of them to feel superior. Maybe, like in the case of my sister, they see that person, they see you in a certain light, and they haven't been able to get themselves past that. Now, luckily my sister was able to quickly get herself past seeing me as the little bratty sister. I mean, I don't know if she saw me as a little bratty sister, but just the little incompetent, somewhat helpless sister who needed help from her siblings or bigger kids or whoever when they were children. Clearly no longer a child, but still having that kind of role in her head. And some people get stuck on that, and they're going to always see you in a certain way. They're going to see you as the incompetent child. They're going to see you as the person that was struggling at one period in their life who is actually now doing well, but they can't get past that there is a time in your life where you were really struggling and needed a lot of help and couldn't do a lot of things on your own. And they did need to be there for you, but now you're through that and you are more functioning in your life and you have more mastery of your life and you're able to kind of take more charge of your own life, but they still see you in that other light, so they continue to treat you like that. It can happen a lot in parent-child relationships. This comes up a lot with adult children, adult parents, where parents continue not to be concerned about them as a parent would about their own child, but to be continuing to try to control them, to try to tell them what to do, getting too involved in their lives, getting too up in their business and trying to guide and direct every one of their decisions. That is infantilization. Maybe it's with a partner who has some control issues. Maybe they were they were the oldest sibling of a lot of siblings, and they feel like it's their job to take care of everyone and everything, and everyone is below them. Maybe it was for a good reason. They did have that responsibility growing up. That was maybe some parentification was forced on them, and they've carried that on, where then because they had this parentification, they weren't really allowed to be children. They always felt this sense of over-responsibility, and so then they are continuing to live out that way with their partner, with other people in their lives. So really understanding that. And it can also come absolutely from codependency. If there's a person who needs to feel needed, to feel vital, to feel important, then they will often engage in some overly controlling behaviors, and that can definitely come from codependency. Now, the other side of it, if you have been infantized, there is some responsibility on you. because as the person being infantized, you can be unconsciously engaging in behaviors that are not only creating some of that infantization by the other person, but keeping it going. And you might not even be aware of it. So why would someone infantize themselves? If you had overly controlling parents, you weren't allowed to make a lot of your own decisions as a child. Your decisions were questioned. You were criticized or put down for the things that were important to you. And then you just sort of carried on in that same light, moving into adulthood because you never really developed your own sense of self-efficacy, your own belief in yourself to be able to accomplish things, to do things, to recover from failure, to make your own decisions because you had very controlling parents. And so you might just be continuing on that role into adulthood. Could also be because you have a big fear of failure. There's a lot of perfectionism in there. And so you default your decisions to others. You look to others to solve your problems, to make your decisions, to fix things for you because you don't trust yourself. You don't believe in yourself and you don't think that you could handle failure, or you just have a really big fear of failure. And so it's easier to default that to someone else than to deal with yourself doing something and it not working out, and then you having to see yourself as imperfect, as someone who makes mistakes. So there can definitely be that. There can definitely also be a sense of comfort that comes from having someone else take care of everything for you. Someone else to pay your bills, make your decisions, make things happen, take over, take everything on. And it can feel kind of easier to just sort of coast, knowing that someone else who is more dominant is going to take care of all that stuff. The issue with that, the issue with all of this, is it might feel easier in the short term. It might feel more comfortable in the short term. It might even be what you want in the short term, but in the big picture, it's very disempowering. It keeps you in a cycle of self-doubt. It keeps you from growing, developing into a self-differentiated, confident, standing on your own 2 feet adult where you can handle things, where you can take things on, where you can face things, where you can fail, where you can succeed, where you can risk, where you can grow. And it prevents all that if you are outsourcing all of that stuff to someone else. Not to say that you can never ask for help, you can never lean on anyone, but there is a line there. And only you know where that is if you're looking to someone for some support in a time of need versus defaulting and relying solely on other people for several significant aspects of your life, including them letting you know what's okay, what's not okay, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what you're allowed to like and what you're not allowed to like. That is keeping you stuck and small and preventing your growth as a human being. So what do you do about it? Work on trusting yourself, taking more responsibility for yourself, trying things, letting yourself fail, letting yourself make decisions, and letting it be the quote unquote wrong decision. Work on your resilience, getting back up when you fall down, allowing yourself to like things that other people don't, and clearly stating that. I understand if you don't like this. I do. And this is what I like. That is what you like. And they are different. Let's leave it at that. So working on your assertive communication, working on owning who you are, even if somebody else thinks something different, it doesn't mean you have to change that because they think they know better. They are just another human being and they don't necessarily know. They are not like, the divine wisdom of the universe who knows everything all the time. They're a human being and they might have some extra knowledge and experience in certain areas, but you also have extra knowledge and experience in other areas. And so allowing yourself to step in and own that. Also, working on setting clear and healthy boundaries. This is what's okay with me. This is what's not okay with me. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this plumbing job. I'm going to figure it out. I do not need your help. Please do not come in to this room while I am doing this. Right? Like setting that clear boundary. This is what I am doing. This is how I want to do it. And I ask that you respect that. Work on trusting yourself more and deferring decisions less. Maybe you get a latte and you realize a few minutes later that you really wanted a chai. It's okay. Next time you can get a chai, you didn't make a mistake, you didn't do something wrong. Even if the other person had said, you should get a chai, and you said, no, I want a latte, and you got the latte, and you realized you wanted a chai, it doesn't mean you can't trust yourself. It doesn't mean they were right. It doesn't mean you never make a decision about which beverage you want to get next time you're at the coffee shop. I know that sounds kind of funny, but there's some of you who are laughing right now because you know it. You're like, oh my goodness, that is so true. But it's these little things that add up that are indicative of the lack of trust we have in ourselves. And if we're continuously doing these little things like this and doubting ourselves and questioning ourselves and second guessing ourselves, we are eroding trust in ourselves. And like any relationship, a healthy, strong, solid relationship requires trust, including you trusting yourself. So, working on trusting yourself, and if you want some help with that, some guidance for that, and some steps to learn how to do that, I have a guide for you. It's called The Simple Steps to Self-Trust. You can grab that. There are some exercises and steps in there that's going to help you really build that solid trust within yourself so you can feel more clear and confident and able to be that self-differentiated adult who trusts themselves, who believes in themselves, who is stepping out into their lives, who is stepping into their authentic selves. Grab that. Get on the wait list for the Shift Society. Get that Simple Steps to Self-Trust while you're waiting for registration to open. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Always good to have you here. Until next time, take good care.